we see what we want to see. Now use that knowledge to make more money. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 225th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today, we got a cool guy on, Mr. Michael Leibowitz, and you will never guess what I Googled to find him. It was during the election season. Isn't it always election season? I don't know. We were right in the middle of it, and I just could not help but notice and be amazed at how people from opposing political sides look at the same thing and come up with a different conclusion. And I know enough about psychology and human communication and persuasion and manipulation. There's a thing called cognitive dissonance and, cognition, your brain, what do you recognize and how things don't match up. And I Googled that phrase, cognitive dissonance, and I found an article. One of the first ones was by Michael Leibowitz. And he's an investment expert. And if you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you know my very first job out of the Air Force was as a stockbroker. I had my Series 7, my 65, my life license. And I was investing as early as 1992, right when I graduated from the Air Force Academy. And I was investing in mutual funds. I had a classmate. We were at Texas A&M together getting our meteorology degrees in the Air Force. And we had to go to the library back then, right, and get real books and look through charts and investing tables and stuff. And that's when I first bought my first stock. And we made money on it. A friend of mine helped me, David. And I was hooked, right? I really liked it. But the investing world, and I still follow it. And but I know that in my experience in investing is that people have the same cognitive dissonance. Two people can look at an investment and one sees nothing but positive opportunity, the other sees nothing but negative and risk. And so seeing that in the election made me do some research, and I ran across Michael, and so he's got some really great insights on this, and we get into talking about investing and growing a business and his ups and downs, so you're in for a treat. So, thanks for tuning in. You're going to enjoy this, as always. But I've been working on some things here. This is the first episode of 2017, and I've got some new programs I've been working on. I want to share with you. I'll mention them here, and I'll mention them at the end. But the first, I haven't used this in a while, and I do not have a specific offer for you right now. But if you want to be on the podcast list when I run promotions, I used to have 30% off on one of my sales training programs, and that has morphed into the Make Every Sale course. And I will probably run a special promo code for my listeners. I've also working on a new book. I'm working on a 2-day private sales training. Really, it's a one-on-one, more of a CRM and marketing and sales and all-in-one sort of training. But if you text the word WHISPER, WHISPER, text the word WHISPER to 44222, and you will be on my podcast list. It'll send you a thank you email and a confirmation, and that's it. Okay, so you're not going to get pummeled with stuff. But if you want to be notified of special offers just for my listeners, please do that. Okay, text the word WHISPER to 44222. And I'm happy to announce that I have a sponsor. I'm working with a guy named Jay Hunter. He owns a company called VA Staffer, and I've been working with him myself using his company and his services for several months. And I like what they're doing. I like the breadth of his team and their abilities. I like their responsiveness. So these are VAs overseas, but Jeff is here in the U.S. Jeff, call him Jay, but Jeff is his real name, but he goes by Jay. But he's here. He has a project manager out in the Bahamas, so at least he's close in the U.S. time zone. But she's very responsive as well. But they're VA staffer. So if you head over to thesaleswhisperer.com/VA staffer, you can get 4 hours of free help from them Totally free, no strings attached. And if you like what they're doing and you want to retain them, they're very affordable. And you basically pay for what you use. And they will give you $100 off when you sign up through the saleswhisperer.com/VA staffer. Okay. And so, and these people can do anything. They can do administrative type work, but they can also do programming. Okay. And so when I got serious about growing my business, I hired a Filipino VA. And her name's Anna. I'm still in touch with her, still outsource some work to her. But that freed me up from tinkering with HTML and CSS and all kind of crazy junk, and even making logos. She took that off my plate. And then, after about a year and a half of working with her, I hired a local assistant, Tanya. And that was fantastic. And that changed my life. Because then I was freed up again to work on bigger and more powerful, more impactful things. So if you do not have an assistant, that is my number one recommendation to you. Get an assistant. Stop trying to do everything. Okay? You need to spend more time with your feet up on the desk, dreaming, mapping things out, plotting out a bigger picture, sitting there on your laptop or on your Kindle with a book, reading, listening to podcasts like this, taking notes, okay, and have others that execute. Obviously, you need to be doing the execution as well, but you need to do a lot less, okay? So, again, check out thesaleswhisperer.com/VA staffer and let me know how much you grow. Now let's bring on Mr. Michael Leibowitz, the man, the myth, the legend, all the way from inside the Beltway. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great, Wes. Thanks.
Hey, man. Thanks for coming on the show. You're a little bit different flavor than what I normally have on, although you are an entrepreneur and a business owner, so we're going to kind of dive into your story. But I found you because I've been studying really all my life, but especially recently, trying to understand what really makes people tick in light of the elections, right? Two people from opposite ends of the spectrum politically will look at the same evidence, the same story, and come out with totally different interpretations of it. So I did a search for cognitive dissonance and found you on a blog post, but you're an investment advisor. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? He's talking my language. So would you mind give us a little thumbnail sketch about who you are and what you do, and we'll dive down that cognitive dissonance rabbit hole?
Sure. Like Wes said, I'm an entrepreneur. I went out on my own about 7-8 years ago after 20 plus years of working for large companies. I decided enough was enough. I was at that point in life where if I didn't do it now, I wasn't going to do it. It was a great opportunity. And there's nothing better than working for yourself, but it's definitely a lot of hard work doing a lot of things that you have no experience in, but the gratification is more than worth it.
Yeah, sure.
So my recent venture is called 720 Global. We've been around for about a year and a half, and we are simply a consultant to investment managers and to some more sophisticated individual investors. And one of the things in my prior company, which I had sold to my partners, I was an investment manager. And one of the things that I saw that was greatly lacking was good, unbiased advice. There was a ton of advice out there, and much of it was biased towards those that were providing it, that were hoping to sell you certain products. So I saw this niche out there, and we've been publishing a lot of free research to drive consulting business. And that's where Wes stumbled across one of our most recent paper, where we talk about cognitive dissonance, groupthink, confirmation bias. And basically, the article goes on to talk about how these three behavioral traits, and there's many more, but they are things that good investors have to get over. You can't think like the pack. Cognitive dissonance is really a hard thing for investors and here's a good example. The market, in my estimation, is very overvalued, and it's been proven a number of different ways, and it's been made pretty public. But at the same time, investors want to ignore that, but jump onto the market because it's been rallying. So your mind has these two competing thoughts that it must battle with. And you had mentioned something about the Trump victory. We actually wrote an article on that too, because that was one of the more amazing behavioral experiments I think I've ever seen in the investing world. Going into the election, Hillary was the leader. She had that 3, 4, 5-point lead, and Trump was thought to be close, but just not close enough. And the way the market thought about the election was that if Trump won, it was going to be bad news. The market could sell off 10% or even more, which is a big move. On Tuesday night of the election, the results were coming in. And, here on the East Coast, 7, 8 o'clock, we were starting to see that, Trump's winning places he shouldn't be winning. Trump may have a chance to take Pennsylvania or maybe North Carolina, Wisconsin. And as the night went on, it was becoming more and more obvious that not only was Trump going to make it close, but Trump was going to win. And the market did what everyone expected it would do, and it was sold off. It was down. The S&P 500 was down 5%. And when it's down 5%, they stop the market from trading. It's a natural shock absorber.
Well, was the market down or were futures down?
Futures, which are, because the market doesn't open until 9:30,
right.
What's called the cash markets, that's all you have. And that's how that's how institutional investors are trading, whether they're trading or hedging, whatever they're doing. So the market, they shut down the market for a while, and then eventually people started buying the market, and the market rallied to the point where that by the close of the next business day, the market was higher in a day, and it was higher in a week. So you had this weird juxtaposition. Trump won, and the market was higher, and it's been moving higher ever since. So what I think is fascinating is that when behavioral traits get to the point where they overtake a market, and this applies to a lot of things, not just markets, but you're getting my kind of market investment experience or mindset. The investor has to get their hands around that. Is why are we rallying if Trump won? I thought this was going to be awful. So the narrative, and I call it a narrative. The narrative changed on a dime. All of a sudden, Trump, who was not good for the economy, who was not good for the stock market, who was going to do all kinds of things, was great news. He's going to lower taxes. He is going to deregulate. He's going to do all these different things that were going to create this great economic growth and wonderful things. And it's just amazing to me how quickly it latched on to a new story. The story that has many flaws in it, many holes, some of which may be true, some of which may be false, some of which, even if they are true, will take years to come to fruition and have many different things that can stop them from occurring.
Right.
So the last month has been a psychological bonanza,
right.
For the markets and for those watching the markets.
So can you explain for our listeners, exactly what cognitive dissonance is? It's a big phrase made up of a couple of big words.
So I'm going to read directly from my report. The condition is experienced by an individual that holds two or more inconsistent thoughts at the same time, including new information that conflicts with existing beliefs. Frequently, humans actively avoid information or opinions that may introduce or strengthen discrepant views. So it's having two thoughts. So, for instance, I'm a big Washington Redskins fan, and they're okay. I know as well as anyone they're not going to win the Super Bowl.
But you got a pretty good quarterback.
We got a good quarterback, and they're going in the right direction. But I was watching the game yesterday, and they barely beat a Philadelphia team who's not really that good. And you can make a case that they should have lost it, but they won. And their record is now, I think it's 7-5-1.
Well,
They're
they
basically
were on the road too, right? You were at Philly.
Right, at Philly. And it was, a game they probably should have lost, but they won. And I know in my head that they are not a Super Bowl team, and they're probably not even a playoff team. If they are, they're a borderline team. But I'm thinking to myself, wow, they've really got a shot to make it into the playoffs, and who knows from there. Mm-hmm. So I'm holding these two inconsistent views. One is this hope, I'm just looking at like the positives where, well, if the quarterback Kirk Cousins can continue to play well and all these things go right, and I'm not thinking about their defense, well, they can win the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I know better. Right. I know that this team cannot win the Super Bowl.
Right.
So it's when your mind has two different opinions and you usually try to silence one of those.
And we're back. So yeah, we're talking about, cognitive dissonance and your teams, but, you hoping for your team to win and overlooking, that's one thing, but to go out and bet on them would be a whole nother level, right?
Okay. Well, so let me give you a market example then. And I think one of the important things that people have to realize is that there's a big difference between speculating and investing. And I think there's a lot going on in the markets now, which lead me to believe that people are speculating and not investing. And it goes to this cognitive dissonance that people, I think, understand that stocks are very expensive, that various ratios, the price to earnings ratio, the revenue to sales ratio, there's half a dozen of them that are at astronomical levels, don't make sense. But the market's going up. And how can you not be invested if the market's not, the market's going up? I got to ride that train. So people are forced to become more speculators and not investors. But at the end of the day, 99% of us in the markets are investors. We're in it for a longer term. We're not trading firms. We don't have the capability to really trade. So that's kind of one instance that's playing out in the markets right now.
How do we detect that in ourselves? Like you said, your role, your goal in creating 720 Global was to create good, unbiased advice. How can anybody be unbiased? Is it even possible?
No, it's not possible. But I think the more you can be aware of it, the more that you will chase down other research, that you will try to read things that you may not even like, that are not popular.
Right.
In that article, I said it's important to read the New York Times and watch Fox News, two polar opposites on a political scale.
Right.
We're actually in the process. We're going to be turning our research into a subscription model, and one of our key goals is to provide research that's unique, that people aren't going to have seen before, and a lot of it will probably end up being alternative or contrarian in nature.
Right.
And whether our readers believe it or not, what we have to say or think that we're right or think that we're wrong doesn't matter. What we hope to do is provide our best thoughts on what's going to happen. And if we can provide some views that they haven't thought about, we are doing one of two things. We're either showing them a new angle, or they're reading our stuff and saying, yeah, I see where he's coming from, but I don't believe it, and it further strengthens their current view.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope to provide value, and we hope we are already providing value through the numerous articles that we've already written by providing a different angle. And I think whatever it is, and it's not just investing, but whatever it is, you have to go, with the elections, you have to go. It was hard to get information on Trump or on Clinton that wasn't very biased.
Right.
You have to seek it out. You have to question the media. Now this whole fake news thing is coming up, and there's nothing new about fake news. Dan Rather was caught doing fake news. Weapons of mass destruction was fake news.
Brian Williams.
Right, Brian Williams, not Dan Rather. I'm sorry. CIA has been pushing out fake news through the media for a long time. There's nothing new. It's just we are incumbent as voting citizens, as investors, as all the different roles we play to seek out the truth, basically, and seek out the logic and the sensibility behind all the information that we're given. And, in this modern age, we have access to so much more.
Yeah, maybe too much, huh?
Yeah. I think that's it can be overwhelming how much, you can Google one topic and you can be reading for a week.
Yeah. Do you have an example of a time that you've gone against your own ideas and were either right or wrong, suffered or benefited greatly, and can you formulate that on your own, right? Or do you need a partner? Do you need, remember the old crossfire days on CNN? You get the left versus the right, and somewhere by y'all pulling on each other, you'll find the truth.
Yeah. So I was at this may be a decent example. I was at Fannie Mae in 2008 when the walls came tumbling down, so to speak. And I was constantly inundated with internal facts and data about how we're fine. The company was fine. Nothing was going to happen to it. Here's all these great statistics that show where we have a ton of capital cushion, and even in these worst case scenarios, we're fine. You just get inundated with that. And as a shareholder and someone whose salary was based on the company and bonuses, and my financial wherewithal was based on how well the company did, it was very hard to listen to that and get it in so many different forms, and not just from the CEO or the CFO, but from my friends that I worked with, from my colleagues, from people that worked for me, from people that I worked for them, meetings throughout the days. And even from the guys that I talked to on Wall Street that are trying to reaffirm it because they know what's good for us is good for them. So I could see what was coming. I mean, it wasn't
right.
Yeah, and I'd seen it coming for a couple of years, and it was extremely difficult to position myself financially. So investing in a way where I could profit from 2008, but also having this dual life where I'm an employee and you're just soaking up that information. So I guess that was one more where I was able to actually fight it and win in a way.
You were surrounded by people saying, hey, everything's fine, no worries, but personally, you were preparing for the storm.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I guess that was an example where I was able to fight it and win.
And, I mean, did you have confidants? I mean, buddies, go to the bar after work and okay, dude, here's what's coming. I don't believe this report. Or did you kind of have to do it on your own because you'd be seen as a wet blanket at the office?
You got to do a little bit on your own. Certainly at the bar after work, there would be a couple guys who I think they didn't want to believe because they didn't want to believe what was being told to them.
Right.
But I'm not sure they had really backed it up with fact.
Right.
Whereas I've always, in investing, I take a top-down approach, which means I look at the global economy. I look at the economy before I start looking at an individual stock and saying, well, IBM should be doing great because they're going to sell this new product and it's going to sell, millions and millions of products. Well, that's great, but if the economy's tanking, they're not selling anything. We know how that works. And even if they are selling, the stock's going to get cut. So I had understood as early as 2005, 2006 that the real estate boom was completely unsustainable.
Yep.
It was a function of low rates and greed. Greed had taken over, and here in the DC suburbs, just like many other places, it was out of control. Watching my own house triple in value over 6, 7, 8 years was unbelievable. But understanding why it was happening, why it was not sustainable, and why it would actually fall, implode on itself was pretty important. So
that was my greatest investment, was moving to Southern California in 2004, and I rented for 6 years.
Perfect.
And because I made the same assessment, right? This house we moved into was it was a big house, like 4,700 square feet, but it was just a tract house, right? Not even with an HOA. And it was $700,000 at the end of 2004. And they were built for $350,000, like 3 years before. And I told my wife, I said, okay, at this current rate, then by 2007, this house will be worth $1.4 million if it continues at the current rate. Or it'll be worth almost zero, right? I mean, it's unsustainable. And my neighbors sold their home, the exact model, two of them in the cul-de-sac, for $850,000 in 2006, I think, end of 2006, maybe early 2007. And then that house got foreclosed that we were in for $298,000.
Wow.
$550,000 less. And then we moved out to another house because that one got foreclosed, rented, and within months they were getting foreclosed. We were able to buy the house that we're in at like 50% off.
Well played. Well played.
Coming from the outside looking in, it was obvious, right? It was like, what are y'all doing? Everybody's like, you got to buy, you got to buy. I'm like, you got to sell. I'm like, no. Right. So my timing was off a couple years, right? But still, if I'd have bought that house even at $700,000, I would still be under market, underwater by $400,000.
Right. You just said an important thing there too. Even though I was early by a couple of years, and that's so important.
Yep.
We don't know when things peak,
right?
When markets peak, when housing markets peak. And even though you were a few years early and you may have been kicking yourself and your friends may have been laughing at you, and your neighbors laughing at you, you ended up much better than them.
Oh,
And that's where, basically what you avoided was groupthink.
Yep.
Where all your friends, all your neighbors, we're all thinking the same thing, that prices were going to just go up forever magically. And we both know that doesn't happen.
So how can our listeners avoid that? What can they do? We have entrepreneurs, we have salespeople, they're seeing whatever is the flavor du jour, right? Get on Snapchat. Everybody's got to be on Snapchat because that's where the marketing is and all the eyeballs are there. And you got to go where the eyeballs are. And it's Snapchat, and it's... Oh, you got to do a podcast, right? Or you got to make a YouTube video, Facebook Live. If you're not on Facebook Live doing video 12 times a day, you're going to get lost. And it's like, how can they discern where they should really focus and spend their time, their money, their energy to grow their own business?
You have to do what gets you results. So I've actually had really good results from Twitter. LinkedIn and Facebook have done very little for me. Now, if you would have asked me a year ago, what should I target? I would have said LinkedIn, because those are professionals. That's where I can really get good access.
Now, did you jump into all three with a plan, or did you just? Was it luck? Was it a strategy? Hey, I'm gonna go hard at Twitter.
No, I first of all, I'm 48, so I have to rely on my kids a little bit to show me the way around some of these social networks. But I figured it out on my own. I figured out Twitter's unique, right? You got to figure out when to tweet, what to reply, who to follow, who you don't really need to follow.
Right.
There's a lot of games that are played to get followers, but a lot of followers don't do anything for you.
Right.
I want followers that are my customers, or that tweet out to a lot of my potential customers. So I'm looking at your profile. So you joined July 2011. So,
we're recording this at the end of 2016. So, it's a good 5.5 years. Did you kind of dip your toe in the water, in like the last year or two, you've gone all in, or did you jump all in?
Yeah. So I opened a Twitter account, I guess, in, 2011. That was just, I don't know, to see what Twitter was all about.
Right.
When I started 720 Global, that's when I started becoming more active.
Okay.
And I actually opened a 720 Global Twitter account, which is still out there, although I really don't use it, and I try to move people from that to my account.
Right.
And it's been over the last year and a half that I've been pretty, what I think is successful. And what I mean by that is I have met actually a client, a few potential clients. I've met a group of people that we have similar thoughts on things, and I feel like I can run ideas by them all the time, and vice versa. Where they'll direct message me and say, "Hey, what do you think about 30-year Treasury bonds here? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about what just happened in Italy?"
So kind of like a virtual mastermind.
Yeah, it's a community.
Yeah.
I've created a community of people that are. Some of them may be like-minded, some of them definitely aren't, but we all come from different backgrounds, different areas of the markets, and that's a great way that you can, as long as you're willing to follow people who you don't agree with,
mm-hmm.
and follow people you agree with, and value all of what they all have to say, with
right.
Sometimes with a grain of salt, but do that. That's a way to help fight some of these biases we were talking
right.
about, cognitive dissonance and some of the other ones. So Twitter, I have found of all the social networking sites to be a great site. And I have 2,700 followers now, which is
right.
pretty amazing, I think. I mean, it's still tiny compared to a lot of people out there, but unfortunately, what you can't measure is quality
right.
of followers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's all about results, right? So if
Correct.
It's working for you, then amen. Have you done any paid advertising on any of the social media
I have
sites?
Not.
Okay.
Because, and maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, but I get like everyone else, I'm actually looking at one right now from Amazon, something about 12 days of deals.
Right.
Promoted advertisement. I have never clicked on a promoted advertisement. I don't even pay any attention to them.
Right.
And in fact, there's been one or two that maybe have looked, I go, wow, that's interesting. Who's that guy? I don't follow him. And I see promoted, and I just immediately skip it.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not.
Hey, you know what I tell my clients, man, is that you are not your client. So don't bring that cognitive dissonance, right? Since you don't
right.
click on ads that your clients wouldn't click on an ad. Don't do that to yourself.
Right.
It's worth testing. I'm just saying.
Right. No, you're right. And Facebook and LinkedIn, I've had a few people that click into me.
Right.
But there's not that conversation in LinkedIn. And
yes,
I feel
true.
when you do have a conversation, it's an awkward conversation because it goes through their message server, which I don't.
You can still. I mean, I have a lot of conversations actually on LinkedIn direct messages. Once you're connected with somebody, so it's similar in that regard. But it's not as. It doesn't seem as fluid, as an open Twitter discussion.
Right. And you know what? I don't keep LinkedIn open for the most part.
Right.
I keep Twitter open.
Right.
So that's probably one reason why it does seem fluid.
Yeah. And so, the other lesson here is do what you enjoy, right? Do what you're good at. Obviously, as long as it produces results, right? If it just felt good and didn't produce any results, then, you're kind of a crazy man. But, you're getting benefits. So continue.
Absolutely. You know what? You only live once, and you have to enjoy. I think enjoying your job is so important, and
right.
so many people fail to understand that.
Right.
And they're comfortable, they're making a good living, they're moving along, and they're saying, okay, in 10, 15, 20 years, I'm going to retire, and I'm going to have all this, and I'm going to be good. Well, you know what? You're also going to be 65, 70 years old.
Right.
So you have to enjoy today, and you have to. There's something unbelievable, especially when I opened my first business in 2008, when you get that first check from a client and you're like, holy cow, I just created that out of thin air. Mm-hmm. Not out of thin air, a lot of work, but
right.
I created that. No one created it. I didn't get paid by a company. I earned this money, and it's, you go to a restaurant and they got their first $5 bill up there. It felt very, there's this feeling that you can't, it's worth a fortune. Yeah. And now that I've been out of the corporate world for 8-9 years, whatever it's been, I don't see how I could ever go back.
Yeah. Well, I'm shooting out a tweet to you right now. I just interviewed Winnie's son last week. And so since we're recording these early, I mean, her episode will go live by the time yours goes live. But you should catch up with her. She's the wealth whisperer.
Wealth whisperer.
But she's built a really big following on social media. But she does a lot on television and whatnot. But very smart marketer in the world of finance. So she'd probably be somebody good for you to connect with. And that's what it's all about, right?
Right.
I always tell people, if you were arrested for being an entrepreneur, would there be enough evidence to convict you? We have to toot our own horns when we're in business. Would you say that came naturally, or
no?
Have been kind of an uphill battle for you?
No, that does not come naturally to me, and I still struggle with it.
Sure.
But you have to do it. You
right.
have to do it, and it's hard. It's hard for me, at least.
Right. Do you do it yourself? Have you ever brought on like a PR agent or a marketing manager to help with some of this?
I haven't. I am considering some marketing people that sell research.
Right.
But right now I've done it all by myself. Part of it is I want 720 Global to reflect my values. And
sure.
The best way to do it is doing it myself. But I also got bills to pay. So, you have to factor all that in. But this is a great example. Like, through my marketing, you stumbled upon me, and now you set me up with Winnie. Who knows what I can offer her, she can offer me. But that's a connection I wouldn't have made without Twitter, without the internet, without pushing your products out there and to an incredibly diverse group of types of clients.
Yeah. Okay, man. Well, I mean, you signed and notarized an agreement with me that you would give us the guaranteed #1 investment for the next 12 years to give us a 22.3% return on our money. So we're all now listening. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
You're going to laugh. Gold.
Oh, please. Thank you. I've been in gold.
The hated security, or it's not even a security, the hated commodity.
I've been in gold. I was buying gold from pawn shops near my house. They still have the sticker on them, man. I was paying cash for like $3.50 an ounce. So I was buying gold. I was buying physical gold and silver. I was in USAA's USAGX. That was their mutual fund, precious metals. And, 30% a year I was getting on that. And I rode it way up, and I rode it down too long, but still made a good lick. But I'm ready to see it rally again.
Yeah, I just, you said if you would have said over the next 6 months, that probably would not have been my answer. But when you're looking at 12 years, one of the things I think a lot about is that we have zero interest rates set by the Federal Reserve. They have quadrupled our money supply, and all we got for that is 2% growth, which is the troughs of prior recessions were 2%, many of them. And the fact is there's just too much debt out there, and that debt has to go away somehow. It can go away by defaulting, or it can go away because the Fed prints a lot of money and keeps interest rates abnormally low. But at the end of the day, gold is just it's another currency.
Sure.
And they're going to devalue the dollar. Even if it's rising against other currencies, it may relatively look like it's appreciating, but its true value is depreciating.
You ever heard of Richard Russell, the Dow Theory Letters?
Yep.
Yeah, so he was extended family member. So I've been reading his stuff since 2002. Actually, he was the one saying, buy gold, and way back then. And so I'm glad. It seemed like it's in good hands now with his passing. But
he died about a year ago, right?
Yeah, that was a smart dude.
Yeah. And you know what? when people ask me, I typically don't really tell them, because instantly when you say you like gold, you're considered a whack job.
Right.
You're, nut job. You're crazy. You're a gold bug. And that's not the case. It's just looking at everything out there and saying none of this is sustainable as it is. It's got to change. And I'm going to bet against the dollar. That's kind of what you're saying.
Sure. I agree. I've been doing that for a while. Well, man, where should we send folks to learn more about you?
720global.com. You can get all the information about what we do. We also have a tab on there that describes our new subscription service, which we'll be putting out all the terms over the next couple of weeks. It's called The Unseen, and it's basically, as we say, we want to prepare our readers for what few see.
Right.
So go on there if you're interested. Go to Contact Us, send me an email, and I'll add you so that you can get all our research going forward. Our prior research, if you want to see what we're all about, is we have a tab called Articles and Commentary. There's 60, 70 articles, maybe more. Give you a good idea how we think about things, what we like, what we don't like, on a wide range of topics. Okay,
and I'll link to both of those. And so 720, I mean 360, I understand it's like a full view. 720, do you look at everything twice?
We look at everything twice.
Nice.
We think the world of investing is composed of two spheres, and it's like a Venn diagram where those spheres meet.
Right.
One sphere is just valuation. What is something worth? How much you paying for something? And then the other is the economy that security is in.
Right.
So right now, I think people are paying an awful lot for things in an economy that can't foster that kind of growth.
Right.
So, the other thing is, and this is especially true for brand new entrepreneurs, trying to find a name with your own .com address is difficult to impossible. So if you don't think outside of the box, you're not going to get a name unless you use your own name.
Yeah, that's true. And I've had to shy away from using my name because people can't spell Schaefer.
You're talking to Leibowitz, so no sympathy here.
Yeah, I know. Hell, they can't spell Whisperer. So, I mean, I come up with, make every sale and growsales.co, but then they'll put an M on the end, and it's just like, what a mess. So that's the struggle of being an entrepreneur, man.
That and changing the toner.
Oh, my gosh. I know. Fortunately, my wife does that usually, but not always. So I feel your pain, man. Well, all right. Michael Leibowitz, 720global.com. Thanks for sharing some words of wisdom on the Sales Podcast, man. It's been great having you.
Thank you, Wes. Really appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a great day.
You too, bud. Thanks.
Do what gets you results. Read multiple sources. It's the mark of a professional, of a mature individual, to consider two conflicting ideas and recognize that they may both be true. There was a Nobel Prize winning physicist by the name of Niels Bohr. He talked about that. When he said that it's possible that the opposite of a profound truth could be another profound truth. And the example he talked about was how light can operate, and it shows properties of being both a wave and a particle. Now, that can get kind of deep, but theoretically, right, in physics, mathematically, that should be impossible. But it is proven that light is both. So that's why I'm pretty sure that's where he came up with that statement. Okay, so in politics, we see that. I think we should take a step back and recognize that people on the other side of the aisle, 99 out of 100, right, don't want evil, and they don't want the nation to fail, right? They're good people. They just go about things differently. Maybe they're misunderstood, okay? But look, in sales and in persuasion and in communication, attacking somebody, hitting them over the head, calling them an idiot is not a way to further your cause. So let's take a deep breath. learn these lessons, apply them in political discourse, apply them in your investing, apply them in your business. Okay, so there's a lot to take away from this interview and understanding the human mind. How do we react? How do we see things? And if you're totally squared away, that's fine. Let me know, because I'll have you as a guest. Let me know how the heck you got totally squared away. But if you are totally squared away, obviously the benefit here is to remember that your customers, your prospects, probably are not. They're approaching you. Let's say, like, I just bought a Mercedes. I traded in my BMW and got a Mercedes. All right, but let's say you're selling Mercedes and you're trying to convince somebody on why they should trade in their BMW. Well, if they absolutely love their BMW and you go and attack BMW, you're going to make them dig in. So you always want to turn things around on people, okay? And, when somebody comes up, they drive up to the lot and they've got a BMW, you don't walk up to them and say, man, that's a piece of junk. Why don't you get the inventor of the automobile? You finally came to your senses, right? Instead, you should say something like, man, that is a beautiful car. That is the ultimate driving machine. What do you like most about it, right? And what do you hope to improve or fix, or what are you looking to upgrade in a Mercedes that the BMW does not offer you? When you can get them talking and mentioning what they don't like, now they're the ones saying it, not you. This works in anything, in recruiting or any kind of sales, As you know, I've done a lot with Infusionsoft over the years. I'm doing more now with HubSpot. But, if somebody came to me, let's say they have Salesforce.com, and they're like, hey, I have Salesforce, I may be looking at something else. I don't say, yeah, that's a bloated thing. That's the 800-pound gorilla. It's built for the large enterprise. It's meant for those with big ESP integrations. Man, you must be an idiot to have Salesforce. No, I'm going to say, man, Salesforce is the 800-pound gorilla. They basically invented the CRM as software as a service. They're the industry standard. Everybody plugs in and connects with them. Why do you want to leave them? And I'm going to let them sell me. I'm going to let them tell me, I don't like the contract. I don't like having to pay extra for support. I don't like that I have to go to the App Exchange and add on Exact Target and Pardot to get automation, to get bulk email. I don't like that it doesn't have a shopping cart. It doesn't have chat, on and on and on, right? Now they're telling me how to sell to them. They're telling me what they don't like. So now all I have to do is jot those down. Maybe I work with them and have them prioritize it to me. And then I simply show them how my solution meets the needs, right? Delivers the things that they don't like in their current platform. And the sale comes very easily. Okay, so that's that cognitive dissonance in a way, right? You got to understand what makes people tick, what lights their fire. Are they moving towards something or are they moving away from it? I wrote about this before. You're either a vitamin or you're an aspirin. And aspirins outsell vitamins, okay? Very few people, just like our medical system. We don't really have health care. We have sick care. Once somebody has a chest pain, they stop what they're doing. A lot of times they don't have a choice. And they go spend the money to get fixed. Meanwhile, if they took more vitamins, if they went to the gym, here it is January 2nd as I record this and launch it, the gym is full. The gym will be full for a week or two, and then it won't be full anymore because working out is hard. Planning ahead is hard. Okay, so are you a vitamin or are you an aspirin? So understand the pain that people are in and position yourself accordingly. Let them know that you can solve their pain and the business will come to you. Okay? Now, I want to give a little plug, a little shout out to my buddy Ian Rowland. I had him on the Sales Podcast a while back. Actually, a year ago, almost exactly, we published his episode on December 29th, 2015. So that was episode number 172. And despite being that far along out of 225 episodes, he is still the third most download episode. And it was Use Mind Reading to Close Sales. So Ian now has a new book called The Pace handbook. And I'm not an affiliate. I don't get paid for this, okay? He's just a good guy. I like what he's doing. But if you visit thepaceway.com, you can check it out. But PACE stands for performers, artists, creative people, entrepreneurs. This is the book he wished he had, when he was a kid. And I've been reading it as well. And he talks about the people like you and me, the entrepreneurs, the doers, that don't want to sit in a cubicle and work a 40-hour job. And it's 22 chapters covering 20 years of his experience. And he's the author of Cold Reading. That's where I found him. But he has trained the FBI. He's been a consultant to the British Olympics, a member of the Inner Magic Circle. He was an entertainer. So in these cold readings, right, that's where you see people on TV. What was the guy, I think it was John Edwards or something like that? And I know that was one of the political people, but there's one of these mind-reading people. Yeah, they're just channelers. They say they're channelers, but they're entertainers, right? They act like they're mind readers, but these cold readings, and again, there's the cognitive dissonance. People believe what they want to believe. They want to believe that you can read minds and you're talking to the dead grandmother. But these people are just reading you and they're manipulating you. So he exposed these people for what they are. And he would go do these cold readings and then tell people, I just made all this up. I just read you. Okay, so he's an honest guy in a dishonest industry. But again, it's thepaceway.com for his new book. I'll link to it as well. So please check that out. And let me know what you think. Giving him a shout out. Let him know that you heard about him through the Sales Podcast. And I would appreciate it very much. Let me give you one last little plug, if you don't mind. And I have now created an Amazon store. And in that store, I've linked to every book of every guest I've ever had on these 225 episodes. So if they have a book, they have a product, I've linked to it. I also have a technology section where I add the microphone that I use, the stand that I use, the tripod, so you can see all of the tools that I use. And of course, Amazon, 9 times out of 10, has the best prices. So you can order any of those and pay the same price as normal. And Amazon will give me a little kickback, okay? And it's a way for you to support the podcast and not pay any extra. But it's at thesaleswhisperer.com/Amazon. So check that out. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you bought. And I appreciate you supporting the podcast. And one last thing. If you want to ask me a question and you want me to address it in a blog post, in a video, or in this episode, head on over to askthewes.com. And that'll redirect to the website. And you can, there'll be a form there. Just tell me who you are and what your question is. And I will do my best to get to it and as quickly as possible. And again, it could be a video, it could be a podcast, it could be a blog post. But it's here. It's an offer for you. It's a resource to help you grow. And you know what? I do better answering questions, and we all do. When we see a need, we want to fill it. So if you bring up something maybe I haven't thought about or I overlooked, it's a great way to inspire me to produce more, better, faster. Okay? So askthewes.com. Thanks for listening. Hope these resources help you. I've got more on the way. Happy New Year. Go sell something. And remember to sell different.